Brahma Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Ite Namani.
In Calcutta, Prabhupada had arrived from somewhere in the airport, and he came, and there was the normal reception, and then sitting in his room, and Prabhupada walked in, and he had a Time magazine in his hand, and he threw it on his desk. He said, "I have been going through this magazine," he said, "full of the activities of Churchill, Stalin, Mao," he said, "demons and hatchet murderers." He said, "No one in our movement should ever read this Time magazine." He had been on the plane, apparently. He had been just glancing through it. He was very disturbed by it. And notice the first person he mentioned, Churchill. The great revered, mighty statesman of the world, practically. Churchill, Stalin, Mao, he said. Hatchet murderers and demons. No one should read. And saying no one should read Time magazine, especially for those of us in India, was like our little connection with the West. We wouldn't even to this day, we won't give it up, And right? But you have to give up all of that. Conditioning. Again in Calcutta, Prabhupada was talking about all the difficulty he had to go through with the government to get permits to leave for America in, 1966. I'd go to the government office and wait and give my application, and they'd look at it and say, "No, but you need this and you need that and you need monetary guarantee." He said, so much complication to leave the country. And he said, "I hate bureaucracy." He put his hand down on his desk. "I hate bureaucracy. They are only expert in saying no." And as an aside, Prabhupada did not want a burgeoning bureaucracy governing ISKCON. Why? They're only expert in saying no. One day in Mayapur, Prabhupada looked at me and he said, "Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma." He said, "Do you know what that means, Bhavananda?" I said, "No, Prabhupada." He said, "It means broad-minded." He said, "The preacher should be broad-minded." Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. In your preaching, you should be broad-minded. Back in Calcutta, Prabhupada was in Calcutta. He was leaving the next day to go to London in order to take part in the Rath Yatra in London. He was very eager to go. This is the first time he went there for the Rath Yatra. But he had a little dysentery. So we called his Kaviraj. And the Kaviraj, took the pulse, and they were talking, and he gave them the different powders, this powder, that powder, mix it with one drop, the whole Megillah, right? And you shouldn't eat You should eat only, like that, the whole Megillah. You should only eat, boiled, so very mildly, no spices, no oil, he said. Definitely no oil, no salt, no ghee. And he left. The Kaviraj left. Prabhupada said, they are always telling me I cannot eat ghee and salt. He said, if I cannot eat ghee and salt, he said, I would rather die. So Chutananda and I were, then suddenly in walks Bhishima, Prabhupada's sister, right? Wonderful, wonderful devotee. She looked just like Prabhupada, but a female, but she was fatty. And they were talking. And then she turned around and she left. He said, she's gone to the kitchen. Oh, Prabhupada was watching her as she left, and he looked at us and he said, she's gotten so fat. He said, when we were young children, we used to race and everything. He said, but now she is so fat. He said, but we did race. And we would race towards our parents. He said, competition is good. Competition is good. He said, in Goloka, the cowherd boys, they race who can touch Krishna first. And they all run, who can touch Krishna first. He said, but in Goloka, whoever touches Krishna first, he's the winner. But the others who touch Krishna, they're also winners. There are no losers. He said, there are no losers. But they race who can touch Krishna first. He said, so competition is good. And my sister and I, in our family, we always competed for who can get the attention and the love from our parents. So you keep that in mind as we go through. Competition is good. I know that we were all very competitive. Of course, the God brothers, who can get Prabhupada? We're always thinking of ways we could be with him, or we could get his attention, or somehow please him. But it got a little rough at times, but that competition was there for the love of Prabhupada. Our lives, everyone's lives in ISKCON at that time, was all about Prabhupada was the center of the universe. Just as Krishna is the center, the cynosure of all eyes, Prabhupada uses that phrase many times in the Bhagavatam and Krishna book. Prabhupada was the cynosure of all his disciples' lives. It was always, where is Prabhupada? What is he doing now? Have you heard what Prabhupada did? Oh, Prabhupada preached here, Prabhupada preached there. Everything was Prabhupada. It was wonderful. Suddenly, Bhishima comes around the corner, and she's got a thali, a plate. And she had cooked portal, which is a green subject, specialty of Bengal, Prabhupada's favorite subject, portal. It's like a small, what would you say, melon with seeds inside there. And puris on the plate, all cooked in mustard oil, dripping in mustard oil. She puts it down on Prabhupada's desk. And I said, this is so brash sometimes I was. And, I said, Prabhupada, you can't eat that. Imagine the gall. Prabhupada, you can't eat that. On a little aside, one thing you should never do is get between Prabhupada and his prasad. Yeah? Prasad was, it was a sacred ritual. When he would take prasad, they bring in the rice and the sabji, and everything was quiet, and he was totally concentrated on what he was eating. Boom, 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 and he'd poke like that with the rice, and he'd take the subject, boom, boom, take a chapati, tear off it, boom. Right? No nonsense, taking prasad, total concentration. No one would ever interrupt him. I said, Prabhupada, you can't eat that. The Kaviraj said you shouldn't have any oil or any fried food. Here she had fried puris in mustard oil. Can you imagine? Prabhupada said, when we were children, this was our mother's cure for dysentery. He broke off a piece of puri, and the mustard oil was dripping off and he got this far with his food, and he looked at Achyutananda and I, and he said, don't look. We immediately closed our eyes like that, and Prabhupada ate, because we were giving him the evil eye. You know, don't look. There we go. Then he ate, and then we opened our eyes. I took the plate, we left. Hours later, I get called to Prabhupada's room, and he said, just now, I passed urine without passing stool. I don't know if you've ever had dysentery, but he said, I passed urine without passing stool. He said, so I am cured. And he said, my mother was right. Right? And that night, off he went to London. Vrindavan Chandra, his youngest son, visited Prabhupada. And after he left, Prabhupada said he's still not married. There was a Marathi lady and her daughter who came when Prabhupada was there. They came every day to hear his class, and then they'd sit in his room, and Prabhupada, they'd have darshan. The daughter, she was in her 20s. She had married when she was 16, and after a year, her husband died, and she had never remarried. So Prabhupada said, I want you to go and see them. They lived a few blocks from the temple. Go and see them and tell them Guru Maharaj's son, he is looking for a wife for his son, if she would be interested in allowing her daughter and Vrindavan Chandra to marry. All right. And we get up and we're about to leave. Achyutananda and I are about to walk out the door and said, one thing, don't forget the dowry. He wanted to know, what is the dowry for them, right? Right? What is the dowry? If they marry, what is she bringing to the... But they weren't interested. A Marathi and a Bengali is not going to happen. But anyway, interesting. He's even still arranging a marriage for his son. Prabhu, now you have understood what I'm trying to do, is to give a picture, another side of Prabhupada, how he was a real person. Not only a real person, but a perfectly real person. But he had emotions. In Goloka, they have emotions. They experience sadness, they experience anger, they experience tears, all the emotions. Otherwise, how can we have those emotions? Everything comes from Krishna. Yes, he's a real person. I remember one woman at the Connaught Circus, Pandal. For some reason, there was a hippie in the front row of all the thousands of people, and he was carrying like a picture in a frame around his neck of Jesus. And he was asking a question, and Prabhupada had him brought up on the stage, and they had this huge argument right on the stage in front of all these people about, what do you know of love, Prabhupada was saying. You know nothing of love. Back and forth, back and forth. And it got so heated that Bhavananda picked him up and dropped him off the stage. This crazy hippie. I don't know why Prabhupada brought him up, but anyway, he is the totally free agent, Krishna's representative. Prabhupada could do anything, so it must have had a purpose. After, one of the ladies who was a big mover in the Pandal, the whole said, "Oh, Guruji has become angry. This is not good. He is a guru. They don't get angry." And Achyutananda and I said, no, you have it all wrong. They get angry, but it's for Krishna. Right? But people have this preconceived idea. It's like, I'll give you another example. My friends and I in New York in 1967, we went part of a group that went to the airport to greet Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And he was all, the flowers and giggling and laughing and giggling and laughing. And everyone, oh. I was not so impressed, but my good friends, they were very impressed. Years later, when they came to my initiation, like I told you, Prabhupada was just, Prabhupada was grave, right? He was not all giggly. And my best friend, who was a Mayavad as it turned out, he couldn't understand. Why does he look so angry, he said to me. I said, he's not angry, he's grave. Prabhupada didn't fit the general Western population's idea of a Swami from India, you see? But he was better than all that. He was a real person who you could relate to and who related to you. I'll give you an example. After I had been released from the jail, and we heard that Prabhupada was going to London to preach. This is, I think, August 1977. Prabhupada had been ill. But this is to show this point, that Prabhupada, he always knew what to say, and it was sincere. When he said it, it wasn't, make show. It was real. I was feeling terrible because I thought, because I shot these Muslims, and it made all the papers, and it was a whole big thing, and communal, will there be communal riots? And it even went to, does this satisfy you? It even went to, in America in the papers, it was on television, communal. I thought I've ruined Prabhupada's, preaching in India, because I felt terrible. Just always, So when we met Prabhupada's group in the airport parking lot in Delhi, it was nighttime. And they were making all arrangements. They were going to bring a wheelchair for Prabhupada. And he was in the back of this car. The door was open. Prabhupada was lying on the back seat of the car with his his back against the wall and his legs out. And he was so thin, so thin. And I went up, and it was just the lights from the big parking lot shining through. And I touched Prabhupada's feet. He said, Bhavananda, oh, come here. So I went in, between the seat and Prabhupada put his arms out and he grabbed me. And he grabbed me to his chest, and he was rubbing my back, and he was saying, oh, my poor boy, don't worry, everything will be all right now. Amazing. And everything, all my anxiety, everything lifted, gone. Right? So he knew what to say, and he knew what was troubling each of us. He knew what my anxiety was, and he totally relieved, and that was love. That was love. Not sentimental, but he cared for every disciple. Not just me, but everyone. And he knew how to handle us, and as I think I said before, he tied us up, Siddhanta, in ropes of love. You've heard that expression. We were just wonderfully trapped. We were tied up with love, the true love, no lust, true love. And Prabhupada, that was his deal, a real person. So then I became part of a team. There was Tamal, there was Bhakti Charu, and me. And the festival came, and but Prabhupada was not feeling well. I had built this park, Kanva, great, real character, gardener, flower expert. He and I had built the present Prabhupada garden for Prabhupada. And the year before, walking with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was saying to us and to me, I want you to build this and do this. And I kept saying, but Prabhupada, where's all the money? Where's the money coming from? Prabhupada put his cane down and he said, why you are always worried for money? You do not think Krishna will give the money for developing his project? I said, I'm sorry, Prabhupada, I'm sorry. Then we walked and we turned at the gate to go down to the temple. And Prabhupada was looking at the Bhajan Kutir, and I said, can I tear this down now, Prabhupada? Since we have the front wall, we have the long building, we have the lotus building, can I tear this down now? And Prabhupada said, no. He said, let them see this is what they were, meaning us, ISKCON. This is what they were, pointed at the Bhajan Kutir, and this, and he pointed right where this temple is now, this is what they have become. In 1976, I had asked Prabhupada if I can, since I'm in Mayapur, may I have permission to perform Chaturmas Brata very strictly? Prabhupada said, yes. He said, if you do that strictly, you will become very famous. So I started doing it, and then different freaks of fate, I had to leave the country, but some newspapers had followed up on an interview I had done, and there were, and it was on the front page of the Amrita Bazar Patrika, big newspaper in Calcutta. So I got a quit India telegram because I had been in India for 4 years, 5 years on a 6-month tourist visa, right? So the papers picked it up. Oh, why is Bhavananda? He's received quit India. Is he CIA? Is he this? You know, it became a whole thing in newspapers all over India. So I got my ticket. I got on the plane, Calcutta, Delhi, Delhi, London, London, New York. When I landed in Delhi, I had some time before my London flight. So they had rented a house fairly near the airport, and that's where Prabhupada was. So I went to have darshan of Prabhupada. I walked in, I paid my obeisances, and I stood up, and Prabhupada had all these articles on his desk. Is Bhavananda CIA? Is he this? Is he that? And Prabhupada looked at me, and he said, so, now you are famous, right? And I laughed, and I said, famous or infamous, Prabhupada? I don't know which. And Prabhupada smiled and he said, our Radharani was also infamous. Everyone knew she was going with Krishna. Her mother knew, her grandmother knew, everyone knew she was going with Krishna, but she could not help herself. She had to go to Krishna. Then he said, so in the future, some may say you are a good devotee, and some may say you are a bad devotee. The important thing is they say you're a devotee. When we go on morning walks, of course, we're very competitive, as I had said before. I'll give you an example. Walking with Prabhupada here in Mayapur, and Tamal was there to be a group of us, and Tamal would drop back from standing next to or walking next to Prabhupada. He'd drop back to talk to me because but if Tamal saw someone with a camera going to take a picture, boom, he'd be right up next to Prabhupada looking at him to get himself in a picture with Prabhupada. So it was that kind of thing. So Janani Bas, he was always the pujari. Prabhupada would come back to the temple. He'd pay his obeisances, and Janani Bas would step forward and give him the Charnamrita. Then he'd step back in the corner, you know. He was always very quiet and very quiet. Not like any of us. We're all there. So I thought Prabhupada never noticed him. Prabhupada comes in, he gives his class, we go up to his room, I sit down, and Prabhupada looks at me and he says, that Janani Bas. I didn't even think Prabhupada really knew his name, right? That Janani Bas, he said, he is developing all the good qualities of a Vaishnav. He said, gentle, quiet, looking me right in the eye, quiet, all humble. He said, he and his brother, I said, Pankjangri. Prabhupada said, yes, Pankjangri. He said, they are developing all the good qualities of a Vaishnav simply by chanting Hare Krishna. Prabhupada knew everything and knew everyone and knew, you know, he was Prabhupada. Prabhupada, he was, you know, he would tease me sometimes, right? Many times. I'll give you some examples. One morning, Prabhupada decided to take his walk on the roof. So he walks up the steps to between the second and third floor of the Lotus building. He stops on the landing, and we're all behind him on the stairs. And Prabhupada said, Bhavananda is the best manager. Everything neat and clean. Then he continues up, and we're all behind him. I'm giving Achyutananda the elbow. I'm the best manager. I'm the best manager. You heard Prabhupada say, right? It was like that. And Prabhupada's walking around the perimeter of the roof, down to the east, then over to the south. Then he walks, and as he's walking, he comes to the southwest corner. In the corner, on the ground, in the corner was a little pile of, some like leaves and some little pieces of paper, just a small, that some wind or, had blown into that corner. And Prabhupada saw it. Little pile. And he stopped. And he pointed his cane at this little pile of debris. And he turns to me and he says, "This is your management." Right? You get it? So from up here, boom, down there. And then at Chutananda, he got me back with the elbow and I was in Vrindavan. Prabhupada had called me to take care of him, and I 1977, and I was starting again a Kartik Brata. So I had a beard. And I was arranging some little jasmine flower garlands on the pictures on Prabhupada's wall to refresh. It was very hot. So I was trying to do things to cool the atmosphere. And Prabhupada was sitting there and he was looking at me and he said, "You look just like Pancham George." He said, "You know him? George V, the King of England, King of Great Britain." I said, "Well, I've heard of him, Prabhupada." He said, "Yes." He said, I saw George V and his wife, Queen Mary. They came to Calcutta in 1911, and they gave us the day off school. And he said they gave us a flag to wave and a little box lunch. And he said the little box had 2 kachoris and a sandesh. This is 1911. Prabhupada was, 15? And he said, and George V and Queen Mary rode by in the open carriage, and we all waved our flag. He said, "You look just like him." So I kind of, I look like a king, right? So I've become the most beautiful man on the planet. I look like a king, King George, right? The next day, Prabhupada looks at me, he says, "You look just like Paramhansa Ramakrishna Dev." So I said, "Oh, Prabhupada, anyone but him." He said, "No, you look like him." He said, "Do you know of him?" I said, "Oh, yes." I said, "Prabhupada, many people in India ask us, especially in Bengal, Ramakrishna and what's his name? Vivekananda." Prabhupada said, "Oh." He said, "What do you say?" I said, "Well, we've become, all of us, we always say, Viveka who?" Prabhupada slapped his hand on the desk. He said, "Yes, do not even recognize his name. Plant eggplant, not Tulsi. He said, talking about Vivekananda. Plant eggplant, not Tulsi. He said, he has ruined the culture of Bengal. Talking of Bengal, in Calcutta, in his room in Calcutta, Prabhupada was praising Bengal. First, before he started, he said, in the Kali Yuga, everything gets smaller and smaller. And he said, in the future, India will be the size of UP only. He said every other state will become independent because everyone wants to be independent in the Kali Yuga. So India will be UP, that's all. He said, Bengal, the people in Bengal are the most intelligent people on the planet. He said, when the sun rises, it rises in Bengal. And as it proceeds west, the people become more and more materialistic. They are, by nature, bhaktas. They're bhaktas. Just there's a covering of a little bitterness from the way they were treated by the English, over all those century and a half. But just a little polish, immediately, the natural bhakti in the hearts of every Bengali, it comes out. Another time, Prabhupada arrived, gave his welcoming talk, went up the top of the stairs. At the top of the first floor landing, Visalini was there. She had come from Vrindavan, and she had her newborn child, her daughter, and she was standing there waiting to greet Prabhupada, and next to her was this little Bengali lady. And she had Prabhupada, and she offered her obeisances, and she had her daughter in her arms, and Prabhupada spoke to her, and there was some interaction, Then Prabhupada went up the stairs to his room. When he sat down on his seat, and I was sitting there, and I think Achyutananda was there, Prabhupada said, "What is she doing here?" Vilasini, right? I said, "Oh, well, Prabhupada, she's come here. She's staying in 2 rooms up on the wall. They're very humble rooms." He said, "Why?" I said, "Well, she's caring for her newborn child." Prabhupada said, "No one should come to Mayapur to live unless they have a service." He said, "And you cannot say that your service is raising your children." He said, in our Bengali villages, the women would take their babies, rub them with a little oil, and let them play in the yard, and they would sit in front of the cottage and spin thread, cotton thread, with the spinning machine. So their job was the thread, and while they're working, they're also watching their children. So no one can say their service is raising their children. And then he said, "And who was that woman?" I said, "Well, that's someone she hired to help her, with her daily activities in the room." He said, "No maids." He said, "They only invite envy and theft." sitting in Prabhupada's room here in Mayapur during Mangal Arti, two incidents. Prabhupada was sitting there, he was listening to the kirtan, and they were not chanting, singing the morning melody. They were singing, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Prabhupada said, no. He said, you go down and stop the kirtan and tell them only during Mangal Arti, only the morning melody. So I had to go down, stop this whole kirtan in front of the deity and say, Prabhupada said, only the morning melody during Mangal Arti. Right? So that is an absolute. It's an absolute. During Mangal Arti, only the morning melody. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Again, a very important one. It's Guru Puja, Prabhupada sitting there. It's a big Guru Puja, a lot of devotees. Sudama Maharaj is leading the kirtan. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru. Prabhupada put his hand up. Stop the whole Guru Puja. We're coming to the climax, Jai Prabhupada. What is this Guru Dev? Who Guru Dev? What Guru Dev? Why are you chanting this Guru Dev? It is Mayavad. Oh, he was fiery. Stop the whole kirtan. No Guru Dev. Personal. Prabhupada, but not Guru Dev. Who, what? He said, who Guru Dev? What Guru Dev? Do not chant this Guru Dev. It is Mayavad. On the morning walk, by the wall on the inside, we had devotees, men and women were coming, families, from Bangladesh, like refugee types, and we were taking it. Some of them came to our front gate, wanting to be devotees. Not every refugee came, but these were, I guess, special because they came to ISKCON. So on the front wall, many of them were handloomers. They had that. From Bangladesh, they would work the handloom. So we bought a few looms and set it up in some rooms on the front wall, and they would make gamchas and dhotis. And Prabhupada liked that because when he went on his walk, he would pass and they'd be at the loom, clack, 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 clack. That noise as they're throwing the shuttlecock back and forth. Prabhupada liked that sound. One morning, because he had been emphasizing everyone should chant in the morning, chant your rounds. So one morning, he's walking, and there's no clack, clack. Prabhupada stops, he said, where is the clack, clack? And Jai Bhataka said, Prabhupada, they're chanting their rounds. They're chanting their japa. And Prabhupada said, japa? Japa? Their work is their japa. Interesting, huh? Again on that morning walk, we had built the pukur on Prabhupada's instructions, and Prabhupada would walk around the pukur. So One day I said to him, Prabhupada, how is it that a man, good sannyasi and staunch, that he can give all that up to marry a woman old enough to be his mother? And Prabhupada said, I like it. He said, when you allow your mind to say, I like it, he said, you will do anything. Even marry a woman old enough to be your grandmother. He said, it is all the mind, controlling the mind. You're an 85-year-old sannyasi, and suddenly you want to leave your sannyasi. You're almost at the finish line, but you want to marry a 35-year-old, 40-year-old woman. Why? Your mind is saying, I want to do it, I like it. I asked Prabhupada once, why are we so attracted to the music of Mozart and Bach? And Prabhupada knew of the music. He said, it is where their music comes closest to the music of the spheres, of the planets. When the devotees first started coming and they were staying in the Lotus building, from overseas, so we would feed everyone on the first floor of the Lotus building. And some distance in the back of the building, we had dug a big hole, and we served the khichdi or whatever was being served on sal leaves, leaf plates. And after they were done, we'd gather up the leaf plates and we'd go back to this hole and throw the leaf plates in there. Piling up. One day I was walking around the second floor and I saw Prabhupada down at the end, the southeast corner, and he was looking south. He was looking just out. And I went up and I looked where he was looking, and there were two little girls, very ragamuffin type girls, local. And they were picking up the plates in the garbage pit. And whatever khichdi was left, they were going like that with their hand and eating it. And Prabhupada was looking at it and he said, just see how wretched they have become. Right? And he was crying. He said, let everyone know that within 10 miles radius of any temple in ISKCON, no one should go hungry. Oh, he was very effective. That was the whole real push for what later became known as Food for Life. And Prabhupada was not just caring for his disciples, he cared for everyone. Even all the residents of Mayapur, all the people of Bengal, all the people of India, all the people of the world. Lord Chaitanya came for everyone, and Prabhupada was Lord Chaitanya's representative. So he cared for everyone. Lord Chaitanya said, in every town and village, he didn't mean just in India, in every town and village, Prabhupada went off on the mission of his Guru Maharaj to establish in every town and village of the world. Sometimes I hear, oh, ISKCON this, ISKCON that, oh, this guy said this guy that. And I said to one devotee who was complaining to me like that, I said, why are you looking at it that way? This complaint may be legitimate, but it's very peripheral. I said, why don't you see ISKCON, that all around the world, by Prabhupada's mercy, there are hundreds and thousands, if not millions, of devotees. And all around the world, like a constantly circle, the Lord is being awakened in New York, then he's being awakened in Los Angeles, then in Hawaii, then in Japan, then in China, then in India. It's a constant worship of the Lord is going on everywhere, like a circle protecting the planet. I said, why don't you see ISKCON has done that? That is Prabhupada's work. Why you're concentrating on, oh, ISKCON this, ISKCON that? I said, it's very insignificant. You know, we have to see things from Prabhupada's perspective. That's why he said to me, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. Bhavananda, do you know what that means? I told this story earlier. No, it means broad-minded. So see the work that Prabhupada has done, and with the assistance of so many devotees, hundreds of thousands of devotees. It's 1977 when, if Sridhar wanted to tell Prabhupada something or ask him something, he would send a brahmachari over to tell me, and then I would tell Prabhupada, Sridhar Maharaj wants me to go over, he has a message for you. And then Prabhupada would or would not give permission. Prabhupada would say, yes, you go. And I'd go over, he'd give me the message, I'd come back and give the message to Prabhupada. So the message was that Sridhar and his other of Prabhupada's godbrothers, who had made the case against Tirtha Maharaj for seizing the property, Chaitanya Mat, Jogpit, and the Bagh Bazar, Gaudiya Mat in Calcutta. They had a court case been going on for years and years. By the way, Prabhupada said, never get involved in court cases. He said, all the lawyers are liars. Did I tell this story? He said, in the courts of Calcutta, he said, everyone is lying. And all the lawyers are lying, and those lies go up into the Akash, into the sky. And when the lies become heavy enough, then it all comes down as plague. As plague. So now you can understand where COVID came from. It was a plague from all the lies and the lies and the lies of the politicians and the lawyers all around the world. Boom. Got them good. I said, Prabhupada, they're asking that they'd like you to join their court case. And Prabhupada, he was quiet. He said, I'll tell you in the morning. So the next morning, I got called in, and Prabhupada said, I was thinking that this court case, he said, I don't want to get involved. He said, why I have to get involved? He said, we have our temple, we have our campus, everything is going on, we have facility for my students. He said, I think that my Guru Maharaj has given the Chaitanya Mat and the Calcutta Gaudiya Mat temple to Kunja Babu. Tirtha Maharaj's name before he took sannyas was Kunja Babu. That's what he was known as. Has given it to Kunja Babu for all the service he did in establishing the legal position of the Gaudiya Math and bringing Guru Maharaj from Mayapur into Calcutta and Altadanga Road and arranging everything. He said, my Guru Maharaj has gifted this to him. He said, so let him have it. Then sometimes in September, October, Prabhupada would say to Tamal, get the astrologer's prediction for his situation. He said, let us look at it, let us have a laugh. And Tamal would read, if he gets through this particular period, which is then he will, things will get better. Prabhupada said, he said in Calcutta, astrology is the highest form of material science. He said, the problem is no one can interpret properly. Astrologers said that if Prabhupada wears a sapphire, that will help in his, for his condition. So Guru Kripa brought a beautiful sapphire ring from Hong Kong, beautiful. And I told you how Prabhupada said, mantras and jewels are empowered. So Prabhupada, yes, he says. So he brought a beautiful sapphire, big, surrounded by little diamonds, a beautiful color. And Prabhupada wore that ring. So when I was preparing Prabhupada for placing in the Samadhi pit, I kept the ring on his finger because I thought this ring may be the cause of a lot of future conflict. And years later, Guru Kripa asked me, he said, whatever happened to that sapphire ring? I said, as far as I know, I said, I left it on Prabhupada's hand and it's in his samadhi. So he was happy with that, Guru Kripa. Because he had heard some stories, so-and-so had it, so-and-so had it. I said, no. I said, as far as I know, it was on his hand. We had Prabhupada on 24-hour watch. Tamal was during the day. I was always there in the evening from like 10 or 11 until 5 or 6. And also in and out during the day. Prabhupada had said, this is a whole story I'm setting. You could have kirtan. Devotees wanted to have kirtan, but he said, you can have kirtan, but with only these small kartals, little kartals, and very soft, nothing, because Prabhupada was ill. But the kirtan was always going on, pretty much. Hansaduta would come in and play a harmonium very softly and chant the Brahma Samhita, and Bharadraj would also come in, but it was all very quiet and very peaceful. And Prabhupada was kind of off limits, as he always was, but one day I came in and he had there was one brahmachari massaging his foot, another brahmachari on his other foot, another brahmachari massaging his leg, another one on the other leg. One was leaning over, massaging his head. another on his own. Everyone, right? But Prabhupada had made himself available to all these nights, and some of them were book distributors. They all had an opportunity. Prabhupada never, he let them do it, right? There were 6, 7, 8 of them, all. And then someone else would take their place, someone else, and on his head, and it was wonderful, it was sweet. Yeah, Prabhupada just allowed it to happen. So I was complaining to Tamal, why do I always have to be, in the middle of the night? I'm always, you always put me, I'm always there, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, trying to stay awake, and you're always there during the day. No, I'm the secretary. If Prabhupada wants to, talk about his will or the family or I have to be there. All right. Yeah, I just had a little whinge. That night, the room, of course, we kept it very dim in the evening. There was just one light over by his desk, and even that lamp, we had a red cloth over it, so it was very dim. And I sat in a chair at the foot of the bed. So Prabhupada is in front of me. And there was one devotee, I couldn't tell you who it was. He was over in a corner, lightly chanting Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada's vision was not so good at that point. You've seen that film where Prabhupada is having darshan, and he has those wonderful sunglasses that Shruti Rupi Mataji bought for him, very fancy, because the light affected his eyes, much like my eyes are affected by light also, now in old age. So I'm sitting there. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm sitting there, and it's all very quiet, and suddenly I hear this voice. Who is that? I said, it's Bhavananda, Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, oh, Bhavananda, don't ever leave me. Stay with me forever. Those were the last words Prabhupada ever said to me directly. And 3 days later, he had left his body. So, sometimes people say, why are you still here? Oh, you did this, you did. I have no choice. I have to be here. Prabhupada said, don't ever leave me.
Je anilo premadana karuna prachu Je anilo premadana karuna prachu